Hi everyone. So yesterday the Young Turks did another video about Russia. This one, to be honest, should be covered. It's not a story that they should ignore. It's been covered a lot in the press and badly in the press, I might add. And it's this story about Vladimir Putin saying at a press conference that he has unstoppable supersonic nuclear missiles that cannot be traced by Western defense systems. Now, the problem with it, that itself isn't the problem. The problem with it is he also added a short clip about the weapons and what they can do and showed them hitting Florida. Now, it's not as if that they made this footage specifically to back up Vladimir Putin's claims. This is a video that was actually from a documentary shot in 2007. So it's important to remember that they haven't just said, okay, this is a simulation. They've just said, oh, show this footage from 2007. So it's not as big a deal as people are making out. Now, the way TYT cover the story at the beginning, that's fine. Anna presents the story. She says these are the facts. This is the way they're covering it in the media. That's great. They usually do a great job with that. The problem, though, comes with the commentary afterwards. And this is the problem with TYT and why they are on the wrong side of this issue. Now, I've took segments of this video. It's about 12 minutes long, but I've cut it down as much as I possibly can just to get all the important things in there. Now, it starts off with Cenk replying to it as normal, and then Katie Halper, who's a guest on the show, who I think is fantastic, weighs in with a really important question and one which is rarely asked on TYT. So this is the first part of the segment.
So look, do I want the U.S. president to fly off the handle and be like, bah, then we're going to attack him? No, I don't.
That's not necessary. And this is one of the things that I really find puzzling about the Russiagate discussion, which is what is the end game? Like, what is it that people want to have happen? Do people want Donald Trump to strongly condemn Putin, nuclear power, and in his usual kind of disrespectful, hyperbolic, insane way, so that what happens? So that Putin and Trump escalate things? Do they want?
That'd be awesome.
You know, like what?
No,
what's the?
Of course that's not. Well, I can answer that question. Okay. It's got a very clear answer. So.
Okay, so Cenk immediately says he doesn't want Donald Trump to reply to Russia the same way he replied to North Korea. Nobody wants that. Oh, my button's bigger than yours and my button works. Rah. Nobody wants that with Russia. For God's sake, don't do that. That's great. But then Katie asked the really important question, the one that everybody I speak to is asking. What's the end game here? What do you want him to do? And this is a question that nobody so far has answered correctly. Cenk goes to answer it, but then he gets cut off. Now, he does answer it later on in the segment, and I will cover that. But this is what Anna replied to that question from Katie Halper.
Let me be clear about one thing. I do not want him to react to Russia the way he has reacted to North Korea. The way he's reacted to North Korea is dangerous, reckless, immature, juvenile. I mean, I can't think of enough words to describe how incredibly damaging that could have potentially been. And I'm lucky that things have calmed down since then. I'm happy things have calmed down since then. Lucky, yeah. The reason why I think it's important to highlight this story is, look, when it comes to the sanctions that Congress passed in regard to Russia, he hasn't implemented them, refuses to implement them, refuses to ever criticize Russia. And then we have this act of provocation from Putin, no statement from Trump whatsoever. Again, it's not that I want a statement from him so much as I want to know that he is keeping the country safe from all bad actors. And I feel like he has this really interesting bias in Putin's favor, and I'm not quite sure why. I don't want to engage in war with Russia. I just want to make sure that the country is safe.
Okay, so Anna responds and tries to answer Katie's question by saying essentially the same thing that Cenk did. What we don't want is for Trump to do the same thing with Russia that he's been doing with North Korea. That's fine, but that's not really answering Katie's question. And then she goes on to answer it directly and brings up the sanctions. Why hasn't he implemented the sanctions? Well, it's important to note this. Obama already implemented sanctions on Russia for any alleged interference in the 2016 election. Nobody points this out. In the media, they always just skim over this. the sanctions were implemented on Russia for any election meddling, and 35 Russian diplomats were ejected from the country. Okay, those sanctions haven't been reversed. They're still in place. And then Anna goes on to say that, oh, something dodgy is going on there. I wonder what it is. And this is where it all goes downhill. This is where they start going into the land of conjecture and just, oh, what could be possibly going on there. And this is how they turn what is essentially a nothing story, really. Yes, okay, it's got to be covered, but it certainly shouldn't be going down the route of, oh, Trump is definitely in bed with Russia. Let's just have a think about all of the things that Trump has done. I've got to explain this as well. I am not a Trump supporter. For anybody commenting saying, oh, you're Putin's puppet and you're on the payroll of Russia, I fucking hate Trump. I think he's disgusting. But I can still look at things objectively and say, this is wrong. Doesn't matter which side of the political spectrum I'm on. First of all, he's bombed Syria. He hasn't just bombed that one airfield once that Cenk said was a soft bombing, whatever the fuck that is. People died, Cenk. They've bombed Syria about 5 or 6 times. A couple of weeks ago, a Russian, and it's important to remember, Russia is Syria's ally. So Russia have got planes going around there. A couple of weeks ago, Russian and American plane nearly collided. This is a disaster waiting to happen. Ramping up this rhetoric of, you got to do something. It could so easily lead to a massive confrontation. And then you've got the build-up of the NATO and US troops on the border of Russia, when we specifically, we in America suggested that that wouldn't happen after the fall of the Iron Curtain. It's been building up and building up ever since. And then you've got just last week, I think it was, there was an arms deal, and America are actually selling anti-tank missiles and weapons to the Ukraine. The Ukraine are enemies of Russia. Now, that's not something that somebody who's in Putin's pocket is going to do. And then there was last week again. 2 ships were sent to the Black Sea, which is bordering Russia. Now, if this isn't ramping up things with Russia, I don't know what is. Everything that is being done is aggressive towards Russia. Is it any wonder that Putin comes out and says, we've got nuclear missiles, remember, we can fucking defend ourselves. We're not North Korea. Our missiles won't be blown out the sky like you're expecting to happen with North Korea with THAAD, T-H-A-A-D, the missile defense system that they've got around South Korea. He's saying, listen, don't play with fucking fire. Your fingers are going to get burned. At no point in this interview, at no point in this segment, did they bring up anything that Trump has actually done which can escalate things with Russia. No point whatsoever. They don't even touch on why Vladimir Putin might have actually come out and done this. He's not going to do it if there's no tensions being ramped up between the 2 countries. For 2 years, for 2 fucking years almost, the entire press corps in America have been banging on about Russia and saying Russia did this and Russia hacked the DNC without any fucking evidence whatsoever that we have seen. So is it any wonder he comes out and says, hey, watch what you're fucking doing? If I was Vladimir Putin, I'd do exactly the same thing, whether I'd fucking interfered with the election or not. You can't expect him to just sit there and take it. He has to look strong in the eyes of his people. He has to look strong. There's an election coming up in Russia. The Russian people, along with the majority of the fucking planet, are looking at America at the moment and saying, have you lost your fucking minds? You are going crazy. This is the way the rest of the world is looking at America, and this sort of shit by TYT is not helping. They are jumping on the MSNBC bandwagon. That's all they're doing. They gave us a story 2 years ago or 18 months ago that said it was Russia that basically hacked the election, and that's why Hillary Clinton didn't win the presidency. And although they haven't come out and said that, that's exactly what they are saying. So let's carry on with the segment and let's see where this leads.
We know that he watches Fox and Friends quite religiously, and we know that a lot of his tweets, his Twitter rants, come from things that are discussed on that show.
Right.
And Alec Baldwin was discussed on Fox and Friends, and then an hour later, Trump tweeted about him. But Condoleezza Rice was also on Fox and Friends later that morning and she actually voluntarily discussed this animation that Putin put out of this nuke hitting Tampa, and he chose not to tweet about that. So there's clearly a disconnect there.
I'm not really looking forward to Condoleezza Rice commenting on this either.
Condoleezza Rice. They've brought up Condoleezza Rice and the fact that Condoleezza Rice alluded to this video by Putin on Fox and Friends. Let's remember who Condoleezza Rice was. Condoleezza Rice was the woman who became Secretary of State for a fucking war criminal after writing an editorial in the New York Times saying, we know why Iraq is lying about weapons of mass destruction. How did that fucking work out? What's Condoleezza Rice's record of being right on foreign affairs like? Not too good. It's not unsurprising that Katie Halper, the one person with any fucking sense by the look of it on that panel, says, I'm not looking forward to her responding to this either. Anyway, Jen goes on to address Katie's earlier question in the next segment. Here, take a look.
So let me get to the answer that you asked for earlier. So Katie, as usual, I agree with a lot of what you're saying because we're both deeply progressive. So I don't want him to be bellicose towards Russia. I don't think that is necessarily productive. Even Alec Baldwin, in his tweets counter to Trump, talked about, I'd rather vote, I would want Mitt Romney back or something like that. No, I don't want Mitt Romney back. I don't want George W. Bush back. And so, and Bush actually did a war that killed all those people.
Right.
So I hear you on all that. But so what is it that people are looking for? We're looking for some sort of sign that Donald Trump is not in the tank for Russia.
Right.
It's not because I want him to go to war with Russia. It's not because I want him to even create more hostilities or do any of the stupid tweets he does with North Korea. It's that I want to have some degree of certainty that he's not in the pocket of another country.
Right.
Again, he says he wants some sort of sign. Well, how's this for a sign, Jenk? The sale of arms to Ukraine, who are at odds with Russia. The build-up of NATO and US troops on the Russian border. Ships going to the Black Sea, where Russia's biggest port is. The repeated bombing of Syria, who are Russia's ally. And he says, oh, well, one of those was a soft bombing. That's what he says. What did you think, those American bombs fucking smother people to death with kisses? All of these are signs that he's not in Putin's pocket, but he totally fucking ignores them. Why does he ignore them or dismiss them as nothing? Because it doesn't fit the narrative that they said 18 months ago. He carries on.
Now, people might think that that's overblown. I don't think it's overblown at all. I think that Donald Trump, there's excellent evidence already externally that we can see with our own eyes that I've talked about and that have been reported on, that Donald Trump did money laundering for the Russians for decades.
And this is what it always leads back to. It always leads back to, oh, well, Trump did money laundering for some Russian oligarchs. He's done some illegal shit, and, that's why he's got to go. There's two reasons why that is just a ridiculous statement and a ridiculous reason to be trying to ramp up this fucking... It could cause World War III, what they're doing. And Putin responding to this, they remember, they have not addressed the fact that this is just Putin's response. Putin didn't do this for no reason whatsoever. He's had a year or 18 months of American press going, Russia, Trump, Russia, Trump, Russia, Trump. And the second thing is, if you get Trump on money laundering or something like that, then you've got to get every single fucking member of Congress almost, and probably 90% of the Senate. Just look at how rich senators get once they get in office. Their salary is not that great. It's about, I think it's $200,000, somewhere in that region. You look at how Nancy Pelosi's wealth has exploded since she's been in the House. You look at how other people, their wealth has gone through the roof. So you don't just go after Trump. I'm all for it, by the way, if this is the end game. If the end game is get them all out for money laundering, investigate a lot of them, fine. But that's not going to happen. You would have to get Trump. Then you would have to go after Hillary Clinton. Then you would have to go after Barack Obama for bailing out the banks and then immediately coming out of office and begin getting $500,000 per speech from Wall Street. That is corruption. And more to the point, why are you only concentrating on Russia? He set up 8 businesses in Saudi Arabia while he was on the campaign trail, got into presidency, and then did a $350 billion fucking arms deal with them. Or 350 million or something like that. What's the matter with you? Their hatred for Trump has made them go insane. He carries on.
Election interference is important because they went to the voter registration. They broke in 22 states. And if they didn't get to the actual votes, as far as we know, but if we don't do anything about it, then they might get to the voter rolls. And it might be China, I mean, it might be Russia, it might be China, it might be someone else. So we have to act, and whether it's money laundering or anything else, if he is beholden to Putin for some reason, then he's not going to take the precautions that a president who represents us should take. That is deeply troubling. So I'm not worried that he didn't tweet about this in particular. I'm worried that he never, ever criticizes Putin from a guy who will criticize Alec Baldwin and everyone on the, Rosie O'Donnell, everyone on the planet but Putin. To me, it is exceedingly clear. And he hasn't done the sanction, he hasn't done anything with, and that doesn't mean that I think the sanctions are wonderful.
Right.
It's just obvious that there is something going on with Putin and Trump, and hence I'm not sure that Trump represents our interests above Putin's.
But do you
So here we go again to bring up the election interference, the alleged election interference, I might add. Why aren't they pushing for paper ballots, if that's the case? He says they want something to be done, so say, oh, we need paper ballots. That way it can't be hacked. We have paper ballots in the UK. We always have. We will not switch over to digital because of this very problem. There are 70 million people in the UK. I believe that's about, how many is in California? Is it 50 million, 100 million? It's pretty close. But if we can do it in the UK, damn sure California can do it and New York. And if they can do it, then so can every other state in America. There you go. Problem fucking solved. Sort it out now. Next time, when it comes around to election time, you won't even be having this discussion. You won't be having this discussion about cross-check eliminating thousands of people, or hundreds of thousands of people, or millions of people. You won't be having this discussion. That's where you should aim. And again, he hasn't brought up what the end game is. He hasn't answered Katie's question. The question was, what is the end game here? Where do you want this to go? And all he keeps bringing up is, oh, Putin, Russia, laundering, he's not doing this because of that. There's no fucking proof there. Fix what you can fix. Push what can be fixed. And then he goes on to say, Rosie O'Donnell and Alec Baldwin, he'll criticise them. Rosie O'Donnell and Alec Baldwin, to my knowledge, to the best of my knowledge, hasn't got nuclear fucking weapons. And then he actually says something sensible. He says, it's not that he thinks the sanctions are great. So if you don't think the sanctions are good, why are you pushing for him to do it? It makes no fucking sense whatsoever. They've lost their minds. Then we come back to the voice of reason on the panel, Katie Halper.
I guess so. I think that my concern, and I hear what you're saying, my concern is that a lot of the hashtag resistance is focusing on Russia in a way that actually will just make it easier for some kind of war to happen, and for the public to be kind of massaged and ready for that to go. Because
exactly. She's absolutely right, and I would add to that, in every time that you are pushing this Trump-Russia connection that there's no proof of whatsoever, every time you do that, You take away the illegitimacy of the DNC primary. You take away the fact that the DNC rigged the primary against Bernie Sanders. You take away the fact that had they not rigged that primary, it's almost definite that we wouldn't be even talking about Donald Trump now. He would be off doing his bloody TV show somewhere. We would have President Bernie Sanders. They are following the DNC line to a T. They are following it blindly because they hate Trump so much. I hate Trump too. I can't stand the man. And more to the point, if you get Trump out, if you get him out, first of all he's got to be indicted. And there's a question mark about whether he can be indicted before he's impeached. So you've got to go through all that. There's a year, easy. And then at the end of it, if you do get rid of Trump, what are you left with? President Mike Pence, who is just as evil, who is just as disgusting as Donald Trump. The only difference being he's efficient and he's not an imbecile. And he'll get evil theist doctrine into the United States Constitution almost. He'll get it in there as law. He'll push through things way more efficiently than Donald Trump will, who shoots himself in the foot every morning before he gets out of fucking bed.
I just look, and I feel like it's unfortunate because people who are reasonable on this issue get stuck in no man's land, as Cenk and I often say, because look, there are plenty of people who are not interested in, getting involved in a war. I certainly don't want to start a new war, but what I'm more concerned about, again, as Cenk said, is having a leader who has our best interests in mind and making sure that we protect ourselves. I mean, yes, Russia's an issue, but from any foreign country that might want to do something to impact our democratic process.
And there you go. We just want Trump gone. We want him gone because he's dangerous. He's only dangerous because the press and people like Anna and Cenk are pushing him day after day after day to ramp things up with Russia. He's got no choice. And even when he does do all the stuff that I've outlined against Russia, they won't even mention it in segments like these. They don't even fucking bring it up. They don't even bring up the arms deals. I've already gone through them twice, I think, already. So the only thing they're going to be happy with, the only thing that they're going to prove to them that Trump is not in bed with Russia is if he goes to fucking war with them. They are pushing him, boxing him in a corner. That's all he's got. That's the only thing he can do. And the worrying thing is, Trump is fucking stupid enough and such a loose cannon that he's likely to do it. Oh, we just need a president who will defend ourselves. Well, yeah, Mike Pence will defend you. Mike Pence is probably not in bed with Russia. Do you want him? Is that who you want? Really? Because however bad you think Trump is, Mike Pence is worse. Mike Pence will actually get this evil stuff done. What has Trump done? What legislative victory has Trump had in the last year and 1 month of his presidency? The tax cuts. Any Republican would push those through. Any of them. In fact, if you go through to even the executive orders, that's basically what the Republicans would do anyway. Do you think Mike Pence wouldn't do any of that? He would do it and get all the other stuff done that Trump can't get done because of his incompetence. And now Cenk finishes off the segment.
Yeah, and so lastly on this, just to double down on what Katie's saying about the over sensationalizing it about, unfortunately, a lot of cable news is like if
MSNBC. It's the only thing I talk about.
Yeah, if I never watch cable news, so that's why I have a slightly different perspective than other people. For people who watch cable news, if you're vomiting Russia, I totally get it. Like Jesus, can you do a segment that isn't about Russia, right? So you're right about that, and you're right about, forces driving more militaristic responses, which we don't want. But that shouldn't cloud our judgment at the same time so that we can't see that clearly Donald Trump doesn't want to do something about Russia.
Okay, Cenk is right there. TYT are not as bad as MSNBC, as Katie pointed out. MSNBC just talk about Russia for 24/7. TYT do other good stuff too. And this is why, people will say, oh, it's the left eating themselves when people like me make videos about TYT, but that's not all I do. And the only reason really I concentrate on TYT is because they used to be so good. They used to be so good, right up until the point Bernie Sanders was cheated out the DNC primary. And ever since then, they jumped on the Hillary train, and ever since they've been riding it like fucking Zorro. And it's been letting the DNC off the hook for doing that. And then they can just concentrate on Russia, and they can totally dismiss any progressive ideas like Medicare for all, like free college, yada yada. You know the list by now. We know why the DNC have brought this up. We know where this Russia interference in the election came from. We know where this story came from. It came from Hillary Clinton. It came from the DNC. It's their story that we've seen no proof of that it actually is true. We've seen no proof that Russia hacked the DNC servers, and every other piece of evidence that we've seen with regards to that hack actually pushes the thing that it wasn't a hack, it was a leak. What that says to people like me and people who can be objective. That's it. I'm just being objective. This is why I've got a different opinion to Cenk. Because he's totally blinded by this Trump-Russia stuff. And it really is disappointing. And I've seen people on other videos that I've done saying, oh, unsubscribe from TYT. Don't unsubscribe from them. 90% of what they do is really good. But the 10% that they're bad on, which is this Trump-Russia stuff, it could be responsible, along with MSNBC and along with the DNC and along with people like Joy Reid and fucking Donna Brazil, it could be responsible for the whole world being obliterated in a nuclear war. And if you think that's hyperbolic, you haven't been fucking paying attention. Thanks very much for watching the video. I apologise for swearing so much. You should have heard me last night when I saw that video. I was in bed swearing like a Navy SEAL. Please subscribe. Please hit the bell. If you can do, please support me on Patreon. I can probably do this for another 4 weeks full time, but if I don't make some sort of money to be able to pay the rent and what have you, I'm going to have to do something else. And the number of videos that I do, I'm going to have to be drawn back, unfortunately. So I'd really appreciate your support. So until next time, take care and peace.